What if I told you one man went from being a chump to being the champ? How did he do it? The answer is shrouded in mystery. So, how long have you known your brother Chris?
All my life.
Perfect. About your childhood with Chris, you guys are pretty close in age. You grew up together. Tell me a little bit about young Chris.
Young Chris. Chris, he liked to. He was pretty independent. He liked to go on little private bike rides down in the woods and stuff, and stay gone for a while. And I don't know. Sometimes I wondered, what I was going on, and he liked. I don't know if you're probably too young to know the $1 Million Man, the Bionic Man. He really liked the episodes that had Bigfoot in it. That was his enemy, the Bionic Man's. But I don't know, Chris, he seemed to really get into that character a little bit. Shows like that, he liked to climb trees and make weird noises at night sometimes. But other than that, it's just your typical sibling type, rivalry. I remember one time he come back from one of his bike rides, and he was, just didn't look right. And I was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" He said, "Man, I saw something. I don't know what it was." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "I went through the woods, and it's a path that goes through the trees, and then you go out into this little clearing, this opening." And he looked over to his right, he said, and there was this large monkey-like figure in a squatting position. So he stared at it, and it stared at him, and it didn't move, and he didn't move at first, and then he kind of done a 180 and flew back to the house. So,
Do you think that had any effect on Chris? Did that change him at all?
I don't know. He kind of stayed off the bike for a little while, but then, seems like it wasn't long after that I got to noticing a lot of the tree climbing and the noises late at night. It's weird, just, I don't know what you call it, like an owl or something, just screeching.
Could you replicate it?
It's something like a kind of noise. Like a
Several years later, unexpectedly, Chris goes on a journey. He leaves his rural community of Cameron, North Carolina, and travels hundreds of miles across the country to the swampy region of New Orleans, Louisiana. Once he arrives in New Orleans, it's discovered that Chris has started a new hobby. He's seen chasing wild animals in the wilderness. At first, you can spot him chasing squirrels and mice and other small animals. But then one day, Chris captures the elusive possum. After months of mastering his ability to catch wild animals, Chris returns to the central region of North Carolina, very close to the WRBF National Forest. But the mystery still remains. How did Chris go from last place, the shittiest guy in our league, pretty sure he eats his own boogers, only had 3 wins? How did he go from worst to first? After weeks of investigating this mystery, I was able to score an exclusive interview with someone who would break the case wide open. Can you tell me about what happened on Friday, August 28th, 2015, the day before the WRBF fantasy football draft? And this is when I realized I had to go visit one of the only gingers that I know. I had to make a trip to Chris's house to get to the bottom of this mystery. Hey man, it's Clint. Hey man,
Oh, hey Clint, how you doing?
I'm doing good. What you got? What you got there? I like your shirt, man.
You want my shirt?
That's cool.
Yeah.
You mind if I come in for a little bit?
Oh yeah, sure. You come on in, but you gotta wear this.
Okay.
Right? It's just
What's this for?
Prevent mind control.
Ah. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me over, man. I just want to ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
Hey, what you got on TV there, man?
I was just watching one of my Bigfoot shows. I like to keep up to date on new techniques of, hunting Bigfoot.
This is when I started to add some things up in my head. He's wearing a Gone Sasquatchin t-shirt. He has Bigfoot shows on TV so we can keep up with new techniques of catching Bigfoot. And all through his house, he has literature on strange creatures. And even in one of his books, he's got a whole chapter on how to catch Bigfoot. Oh, how the plot is thickening. All right, Chris, I'm doing a little report on last year's fantasy football season. I'm going to ask you some questions about how you won the championship last year. But before we do that, I noticed you have a big interest in Bigfoot and the supernatural. What got you interested in those things?
I came home late from work one night. And I think it was about 2 a.m. And normally my dog Sally is real excited when I get home. She normally jumps all over. But this night she was just sitting on the porch, looking just above the tree line at the woods, and I turned to look to see what she was looking at, and there was these lights strobing back and forth, and it made no sound whatsoever, and I just stood there and stared. I had no idea what I was looking at. And about 5 seconds later, the lights, as they were strobing, started moving, and they moved right over my brother Dale's house. And at that point, I saw a blue beam shoot down into their house, and I saw Dale going up toward the craft in that blue beam. And I was terrified, so I ran in my house, and I got the phone, and I come back out, and the craft was gone. And I was worried about my brother, so I didn't sleep a wink that night. And I saw him the next morning because I didn't go to sleep. And I noticed he was walking funny. And I'm not really sure what they did to him, but I think it was sexual.
Now I want you to tell me a little bit about our fantasy football season the last couple of years. In 2014, you were worst place, finished dead last, only had 3 wins. And then you turned it around pretty quickly. 2015, you were the champion. Tell me a little bit about how you went from worst to first.
Clint, as you know, I have 2 passions in my life. Two hobbies I love very much. In 2014, I tried to have time for both of them, and it really hurt my fantasy football. So in 2015, I found I was making poor decisions on trades and stuff like that. Because my lucky 8-ball not so lucky anymore. And so I consulted a newfound friend of what I should do with Philip Rivers.
David Johnson. What's that back there, man? What's going on? I just heard somebody. What is that?
I didn't hear anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, the help that I got last year really piqued my confidence for this year.
David Johnson!
Excuse me for 1 second. I got something I got to take care of. He researches the fantasy football or it gets to stick again.
I knew it! I knew it couldn't have been you! You couldn't have went from worst to first all by yourself!
You see too much! Get out of here! Get on out of here! Get your ass out of here!
So let this be a warning to all you fantasy football jabronis out there. It's going to take a lot to win this league. More than just picking up a magazine on the way to the draft. More than just following Matthew Berry on Twitter. Maybe you need to go visit a psychic. And maybe she can tell you who the next ODB is going to be. Or maybe you need to find Doc and borrow the DeLorean to go back to the future and draft David Johnson instead of Chris Johnson. Or maybe, just maybe, you need to track down the best fantasy football expert of all time, Bigfoot. Because this ain't no ordinary league. This is where reality becomes fantasy.